Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to SARC's first talk of the year, Bits to Finance. We've got some really great speakers today who all hold prominent positions in the finance industry, and they'll be sharing their experiences and advice with us. So, thank you guys for being here. Introducing our speakers, first up, we've got Mr. Harshit Kansal. Harshit graduated from the Pilani campus in 2018, and he's currently a credit risk officer at JP Morgan Chase. He got his MBA at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, where he also secured an institute rank 2 and he was silver medalist. Harshit, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Satvik, and thanks, team, for organizing this and having me over. It's always really exciting for me to interact with the newer batches, from my alma mater, and this helps me keep in touch, right? So yeah, really excited to be here today. Um, so if I start with my career journey, right? So Satvik, I think that's the expectation, sharing about myself and how from bits
Yeah,
to
yeah, it is.
current role. Cool. So needless to say, bits held a really special place in my whole of the career journey, right? And I think the great and the flexible curriculum which bits provides to us really sparked an early interest in finance for me. So it wasn't a new domain for me as such when I started going for these electives and started trying out for projects and all in finance at BITS, because I had already like a bit of a background through economics, which I studied at +2 level, and that was something I liked. Then, right after the very first year of engineering, I was fortunate enough to land a summer internship at IIM Lucknow and worked with a professor there, right, on a project on capital markets. So that's where that interest kept on developing. And then there were quite a few good electives, as you people might have already seen, and some of you, I'm sure, would be pursuing them as well. So I also opted for a few of them during my engineering at BITS. So I think after that, it was the time for the next step, which happened, and with CAT and all other MBA entrance exams that are there. So appeared in them, and for me, I was always very sure about doing an MBA, right? So joined as a fresher at IIFT Delhi and majored in finance there. And from there, I joined JP Morgan, right? So kept on kind of building my skill set in this field, and wherever I got a chance, did other internships and projects and whatever to just develop myself and be you know very good enough in this field of finance which is there. So after I had started my job, I also started pursuing CFA along with the job itself, and became a charter holder in 2022. So in JPMC, if we talk about my role there, I started off as a credit risk underwriter, basically in asset and wealth management, which is a line of business that caters to the ultra high net worth individuals, right, across different geographies wherever JP Morgan is operating in. So, along with the ultra high net worth individual clients, you have their personal investment companies and the they are associated with. So that was my initial role. And then beginning of last year, I shifted to a new role of a credit risk officer, basically in the same LOB. But in this role, I'm involved in the decision making and structuring of credit deals, having final approval authority on them. So I'm also actively overseeing the derivatives trading of our clients. And in a nutshell, if we talk about this role, it's about financial analysis, working on the client's balance sheets, cash flow statements, grading them, um, assessing and mitigating the risks associated with their financial profiles. And it involves things like stress testing, governance, and so on, right? So entire deal structures are there. And same goes for the derivatives trading, like I mentioned. So our clients being almost equivalent to institutions due to their net worth and financial profile, they engage in a lot of trading activities. So That is something called as counterparty credit risk, and which I'm currently involved in heavily. So yeah, so that's like the basic about myself and my career journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for the insights, Harshit. Next, we are honored to introduce Mr. Ritin Kakkar, a distinguished BITS alumnus and Vice President at Barclays Investment Bank. He received the Manoj Saxena pre-seed funding and was awarded Mantra Entrepreneur of the Year in 2013 by BITS Alumni Association. He also organized the first ever TEDx in BITS Hyderabad. Please welcome Mr. Ritin Kakkar. Ritin, you can take the stage now.
Sure. So, guys, am I audible and visible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. No, I think thanks for having me over again. I think appreciate, and it's always good to speak to to speak to newer folks at BITS. So I was pretty prompt in accepting this invitation when the folks had reached out from BITS. I think just a little bit about myself, maybe before I hand over to the other speaker. Now, so I was at from so I'm from Delhi. I've been brought up in an army background, so I had changed certain schools. Uh, and To be very honest, when I was in grade 12, I wasn't. I was more keen on doing I think economics at that point of time. And one thing led to another. I ended up in BITS Hyderabad. This was back in 2009, and incidentally, I came in. And again, I think because I got a lower score that time, I got MSc 5 year course. So I thought, okay, let me just take it and see how it goes. And I always feel in life I've never had a 15-year plan. I've always just thought of the next 2, 3, 4 years and how I want to navigate that. So when I landed up in BITS, Hyderabad in 2009, initially I was not sure about, what is going on, or what will happen, whether I really want to do engineering or not. But, I think the time at BITS, I think helped me a lot in general because I think the institute, the amount of freedom you get, it's not just about playing Counter Strike or Dota or doing something else and not attending classes, but I think even the kind of freedom and the kind of culture there is at BITS, it's extremely entrepreneurial. It teaches you to be proactive and to take initiative yourself. And that was further exaggerated by the fact that I had joined in as the second batch at BITS Hyderabad. So when you're in a young institute, a lot of the cultural development is actually on your shoulder in terms of what you end up doing in college. You are free to set up new societies, you're free to take up new initiatives, you're free to sort of, again, as Harshit mentioned just before this, I mean, you're free to take a plethora of courses. So I think that helped. I started enjoying economics. I dabbled a bit on the entrepreneurial front. Sort of, was leading a CEL initiative there. I'm assuming CEL is still around in BITS and very active overall. So I think had a good time in BITS, made a good bunch of friends, and then I think by the time I was in, I think third year or so, I preferred the economic courses, and I thought, may as well try my hand at this rather than the dual major. I had taken electronic communication engineering along with economics at that point of time, and I preferred. I liked the economics courses. I thought I was good at them, and like Harshit as well, I also had economics in 11th and 12th. So I think that's how I started enjoying the world of finance more so from an economic lens to understand from a macroeconomic lens about how you know certain things happening in the world affect certain asset prices. You know, it's not that you always have a crystal ball, but there are certain things, some patterns which you're able to recognize and think through if you're able to sort of read and make sense of what is going on from a macroeconomic standpoint. So started enjoying that, thought that, let me try and do an MBA and then try and see whether where I land up from there. So I was also, I would say, lucky. I ended up getting a good sort of score in CAT. I did have a internship going on at Credit Suisse at that point of time in practice school too. So that internship was more on the reporting side. It was, to be honest, this was a risk reporting role. I'm not sure if that Mumbai Powai Credit Office role is still there in practice school too, but that was the one I was in. It was more a reporting role, not so much sort of front office investment banking slash finance, which I aspired to do. But during that time, I got a decent score in CAT. I managed an admission at IIM Lucknow. So I decided to go do an MBA. Now, out there in MBA, you know, again, it just gives sort of first term in MBA is a bit weird because it's just quite a mela on placements on making CVs, etc. The whole rat of internships. But I was more focusing on, okay, can I get some good internships in investment banking? I ended up getting an internship at Deutsche Bank. At that internship, then that's where so I think that internship again that was again something which was I would say from an expectation reality standpoint, again, it was not the front office. I was, pretty, hell bent that no, I want to, if I go into banking, I want to go into the front office. But that's a mid office role at Deutsche Bank. I got a PPO, it was a decent salary. I thought it's a leg, give me a decent leg into the world of finance. So I thought, okay, let me figure it out. Then post that when I got the PPO, I chilled out. Second year was a ball in MBA. No finance, nothing there. I went on exchange, did a Euro trip, had fun, was partying. That's all I did in second year MBA. But when I joined, Deutsche Bank, and I think that is something in hindsight, I feel it's important that in your career and in your life, you need to, and you should always try and be more proactive than reactive. When I went into Deutsche Bank, I knew that, this is a foothold into banking space, but it's still not the actual, role I probably aspire to do. I wanted more something which is just client facing, wanted to do more interaction with clients, more that kind of a role. But I think what I did at Deutsche was, I was involved. I joined in the team which used to do dollar bonds for Southeast Asian clients. So effectively, I was working very closely with the Southeast Asia team. I used to travel to Singapore, let's say once in 3 months, got a lot of deal exposure, primarily on dollar bonds, which companies in Southeast Asia were raising. And I kind of worked hard. I I also sort of, again, on the point of being proactive, I pushed my managing director that look, my aspiration is to move to the front office, and if that comes up, that's good. If not, I'll probably end up doing something else. So I was fairly clear about it because I think it's always good to go and have that uncomfortable conversation with bosses sometime, which at that point of time is uncomfortable, but in the long run helps. Then an opportunity did open up in the front office in Mumbai itself. Uh, and I moved there within 2 years of joining. So I'm talking about 2016 to 18. I was in Deutsche working with the Southeast Asia team. Beginning 2018, I moved to the front office. At I got good exposure there. Had a lot of client interaction, what I wanted, and worked primarily, as I mentioned, on dollar bonds. Then in 2019, this opportunity came up at Barclays, and I've been here since 5 years. And here, I think the role which I do is that we cover sort of corporates in India, from mid market to the likes of Reliance, the whole broad spectrum. And this is a broader minded, broader role where we are doing, so I'm in the debt financing side, so doing the classical arranging roles that we arrange debt for companies, and also have our own balance sheet where we also sort of lend in our own Barclays money to clients. So that's effectively called structured credit. We have a last book, last I mean loan against shares. We do leverage finance where we sort of fund, we finance. corporates or sponsors for acquisitions, and then we also help companies to debt at the capital markets where we don't really take our own balance sheet, but it's more of a ranging role. So it's a whole breadth of products. I think at my role, what we typically do is that there's always a BD element where you need to scope, you need to originate more transactions. At the same time, it's about sort of executing deals. There's always certain amount of life situations going on. So it's working with, let's say, working with rating agencies, helping structure transactions, thinking through governance. What kind of debt structures make sense for a company, uh, pricing that, marketing that to investor, and if it's through our books, working internally with our sort of risk colleagues in our investment committees to get those approved. So I think that's fundamentally what it is. Just to probably take a step back, what we end up doing, on our balance sheet portion is a lot of work around analyzing companies, analyzing industries, and so on and so forth. So I think as I mentioned, I mean, it's always I'll take a pause in a second, but I hadn't chopped out a 10-year journey. Uh, it's been 10 years since I left BITS. I was there from 2009 to 14. But I think what I've always sort of tried to do is think through where I am today and next 2 3 years, how am I thinking about it? And I think I'm still doing that. I mean, I still may. Uh, figure out what I want to do, if I want to if I want to try my hands at something else within some other products within banking, how I want to navigate it. So I think that's something I've always thought of, to look at a near term thing more than a very longer term plan. But I'll take a pause, probably hand it over back to the moderator, to take this forward. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Ritin. Moving on, we have our last speaker, Mr. Pavan Kumar Nadiminti. Pavan graduated from the Pilani campus in 2011 and he got his master's in financial engineering from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. He's got over 8 years of experience in quant analytics at Crow, and he's got extensive experience in financial modeling and statistical analysis. Pavan, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Satvik. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, yeah, no issues.
Okay, yeah. So, just to give a little bit of background about myself, like we had two excellent speakers, and mine has been a little bit more non-traditional and slightly different kind of career trajectory than the other two speakers. I pretty much started like I'll start like description from bits. I started as a chemistry and civil engineering dualite, 2006 batch. I actually did not plan to get into finance field or things like that while I was at BITS, or even like few years after BITS. I was more focused on kind of trying to get into like field that I kind of learned, and I wanted to kind of pursue my career in the degrees that I kind of obtained at that time. So like just try to focus on like the courses and like did coursework. Um, More importantly, in all the like my time at bits, I tried to be curious and try to understand things in more finer detail, not necessarily trying to score good marks in exams, but just try to understand things a little bit more deeply, right? So be it chemistry courses where like like we used to learn about quantum mechanics and things like that, just kind of get a little bit deeper and get a feel for things, understand the mathematical nuances of things, whereas similarly in civil engineering, like understand the like fluid mechanics and things like that, get a really deep understanding of like how mathematics is being applied to sciences and engineering. Like that's how my thinking was at the time, and once I graduated, had a brief stint in like an IT company, and then through Gate, like I got into like a research organization in Pune, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, where I was I did my training and finished. After finishing the training, I was a research scientist there, like working on ocean modeling, forecasting on ocean flow ocean temperatures, which kind of those ocean models used to feed into atmospheric models, and they use those models outputs for weather forecasting and things like that. So kind of all of this career trajectory was not related to finance, but it kind of set me up really nicely for having a good, strong mathematical background, technical background. And I was kind of contemplating what about my career, what to do at this point, and kind of trying to think about what different, how I could um, kind of pivot into a different field where, I could grow a little bit more faster in my career. And bits really helped me even after graduation, in the sense that we had all these bits forums where they used to discuss about higher studies, masters, and one of the posts and discussions was about this particular field called financial engineering. And that's when I first kind of came to know about this field where I felt like had a good overlap with my technical background, and I wanted to kind of pivot into the finance field. So I felt like going into the finance domain with the kind of mathematical modeling experience that I had at the time made more sense. So kind of went into kind of exploring what various options in universities these courses were available, and then researched online and kind of applied to various universities in the US. And I got admitted to University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Did The course was pretty intense, and I felt like I mean, many people would suggest that the finance part is easy, and the real tough part is the mathematical part, computational, in all this kind of stuff. But I did feel like not knowing any finance up until that point was a little bit challenging, and picking up with zero knowledge of finance and getting into the masters in financial engineering program, learning all the finance while also learning new mathematical techniques, computational techniques. It did it make me feel a little bit uneasy, but you got to struggle and pick yourself up, and you have to work hard. And I did that, was able to secure a third prize in our final project coursework that we presented in our university while I was during the summer. We had this internship opportunity. So I applied for an internship position at my current company, Crow LLP. And so based on my background and some of the project work that I did during my practicum course, which is kind of similar to our practice school at my university. So I talked about my project work, my background, and my technical expertise, as I kind of developed them throughout my career. And they like the way I presented myself, and offered the intern position. And once you get the position, you work hard, to do the grind work, and really present yourself in a way that they feel like, yes, the candidate is good. So did that, and they liked me and offered the full-time position. And I've been continuing to work at Crow since then. um, so after my master's, I pretty much started in the Los Angeles office, and I was there for about 5 years. And due to personal reasons, I kind of moved back to India after that, and I continue to work in the same teams from Hyderabad now. Um, Kind of coming to my specific type of role that I'm in, we do quite a bit of statistical analysis and modeling for our clients. So, Crow is basically a consulting firm, and we have various banking clients in the banking industry who kind of approach Crow for the consulting services, and we help basically many of our clients. It's kind of two slightly different kind of roles that I kind of get myself involved in. One is more of stress testing and capital planning analysis for our banking clients, where we help build models for them to kind of link their credit losses with macroeconomic movements. And we build statistical models and create these predictive models which help them in assessing the capital reserve requirements. And another is I get myself involved in like fair lending analytics, where we kind of help our banking clients detect whether they have been lending fairly to all their like client base. So this would involve like looking at making sure like there are no biases in lending with respect to various demographics. And basically most of my work involves like doing some kind of statistical analysis, running code, doing data analytics and figuring out through mathematical analysis whether like there have been any like discrepancies in lending and things like that. Or like if you have, or if I talk about the prior work about stress testing and capital requirements analysis, like looking at various kinds of models, challenger models, looking at model documentation, like running code to basically determine whether these models are the best models for like these particular bank and things like that. So that's pretty much my current role. So yeah, I mean, I'd suggest basically try to be passionate about what you really want to do. And like if finance is a field that you like resonates with you, you pursue that, kind of try and figure out what is the particular branch that like sub branch within finance that kind of more resonates with you. Do not necessarily have to follow the trodden path which everybody follows. Like most common thing is you do engineering and do MBA and try to join like a finance institution, but like that you don't have to always do that to kind of get to a similar position as what I have done. You could have kind of followed slightly uncharted territory and still kind of end up in a similar situation. So I'll pause here and let the moderators take it back.
That was very insightful, Pavan. Thank you so much. So, moving on, we have some questions which we'll be asking you all. So, Ritin, will start with a question for you. So, you had this degree in MSc Economics, and then at BITS you received this replacement offer at Credit Suisse, but you decided not to proceed with it and instead pursued an MBA from IIM Lucknow. So, what inspired you to take that route?
Yeah, I think similar to what I covered earlier, I think the role at Credit Suisse, I sort of, was not 100% satisfied with it at that point of time. Um, I would have probably taken it had I didn't have the MBA option, but it was a call I took at that point of time that I would rather leave it and try for something, which I would aspire to do, right? I wanted to take that punt, and I think also, to be honest, I did get a good scat score. I thought, it makes sense to cash on that time and sort of take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much, Ritin. The next question I have for Harshit. What does a job of a credit risk officer look like to you? Like, what is your usual day?
Sure, sure. So, a credit risk officer in any bank or financial institution is responsible for, first of all, analyzing the risks associated with any of the credit deals which the bank engages in, right? Which essentially means you're lending to the clients. So, the analysis of that risk, the underwriting, which involves several aspects, right? You grade the client on the basis of the financial profile and other qualitative factors in a client's financials, like how concentrated the client is. Suppose a client's balance sheet comprises of well diversified fixed income securities, equity, and cash, and other even slightly illiquid assets, right? So you will be more comfortable to lend to that client compared to a client whose 90% of the assets are concentrated in a private company, right? A private non-listed company which is illiquid. So what we are trying to look at is safeguard banks' interests from the exposures we face due to these deals that we engage in with our clients, right? So how we do that is, number one is rating, as I discussed. The other is something called as loss given default, right? So depending on the structure of the deal, whether it's say a secured lending you are engaging in or an unsecured, or the various kinds of collateral available to secure the loans, right? So a loan that is secured by cash and marketable securities, it's much safer than something which is secured by, say, art, right, or a yacht. So we have all kinds of financings available to the clients. So aircraft, art, private equity, hedge funds. So depending on that, we have these certain appetites to engage in further relationships with our clients, right? So overall, if we see, it's about these aspects as well as approving of those deals, and wherever needed, introductions of mitigants in the contracts that we undertake with the clients. So we could have, say, a certain covenant which does not allow the borrower to um, borrow any more money in, say, next 5 years, right? Or we could have a covenant which forces the borrower to maintain certain liquid assets, either at JPM or outside, and um, keep on delivering to us the proofs of that maintenance, and so on. So we have several covenants and conditions which are there in the agreements that take place. So that's what broadly is the role, and the team involved in credit risk underwriting does most of the analysis and financial grading and stress testing part, while credit officers are responsible for approving those and reviewing those deals with them, and the lending team. Yeah,
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Harshit. Next
sure.
question is to Pavan. What do the daily responsibilities for quant analyst look like? Could you explain in more detail?
Yeah, sure. So I can speak a little bit about my role. So I'm in this consulting field, right? So it's mainly, you align with your clients. So work is not always kind of constant where you have a set amount of work. The sometimes at any given point you'll have like more than two clients, and you manage your clients, and sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less, but you work around your clients essentially in the consulting business. And the work usually looks something like, you have a credit risk modeling work. You're doing some capital stress testing for your client. Then you do something called as model validation, where the clients have come up with a model, and you're kind of a third party kind of validating their models. Or sometimes you help build the models for your clients as well. So either of these, kind of, you start with reviewing the model documentation, checking whether the implementation has been done correctly, looking at whether the model design is correct, kind of trying to understand how the model is set up, making sure uh, you know uh, the intended use of the model is accurate, and then kind of review the outputs, and make sure they are making quantitative sense as well as qualitative sense, right? Whether there are any data quality issues, you check for those. Basically really understand the statistical implementation, the statistical meaning of the results, right? And then make sure all the stakeholders understand what is at stake with respect to these kind of models. And kind of day to day, hands on, it look more like reviewing the code, understanding the statistical concepts, and model design is implemented correctly, and the more code is generating the desired and expected outcomes. Having various calls with the clients and all stakeholders to kind of understand and make them understand, make sure that they like the models are predicting exactly what they're intended to do, right? So it's more quantitative in my particular role, and we kind of analyze all the statistical aspects of a model. And typically, like this is what quant analyst does in our like firm. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Pavan. We have one more question for Ritin. So, Ritin, you had a startup called Ritin during your bid days. So, you have had experience of both startups and the corporate world. So, what were your learnings from your startup that helped you later in your career journey ahead?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing is that is taking initiative. Now, and I think that's a broader point also, in which I would probably just say for the benefit of the folks who are in college. I think, Pawan did mention that the world today is very different. You don't particularly have to take certain traditional paths where you go from A to B and B to C. There's a lot of non-linear growth which happens in the corporate world today. And I think any sort of startup or anything in, I mean, a startup particularly, I think a very important thing is taking initiative and being proactive. Even if you're in an organization, and someone like a let's say someone like a Harshit also may testify to that. You're in a large organization, whether you're in a global bank or wherever you are, no one's going to come and tell you that, hey, now you've been promoted and now your responsibilities are going to change from A to B. So that's not how the world works. I think it's more about taking initiative and trying to demonstrate and do what what is more than expected, so that you're ready for whatever role you're aspiring to do. And that taking initiative can actually help you, you know, switch. Maybe you want to do something else, right? I mean, maybe you're in finance and you say, look, I really don't want to do finance and I want to do something else, which maybe I want to, join I want to open a fast food restaurant. I mean, to give you an example, I don't know how many of you sort of read there's the Australian IPO which happened where ex hedge fund person started firm called Guzman long back that sells burritos. It's one of the largest IPOs in sort of in Australian history. So what I'm trying to say is that any sort of startup teaches you taking initiative, and that is something which is, I think, very important in your career going forward, is what I would say.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Ritin. At this point, we're going to open the stage up for audience questions. If anyone has a question, then they can put them in the chat or just raise your hand and feel free to ask. Right. It looks like we've already got some questions in the chat. So we have a question for Harshit. What are the two main components of credit risk? How can one attain some certifications in credit risk? Kindly please tell, as I am also interested.
Okay, great question, first of all. So, credit risk can be measured in terms of two main components, right? So, one would be the probability of default of the individual or any institution that you are engaging with, and one is the loss given default, right? So how these two things differ is the probability of default depends on the current profile of the client and say like how much leverage the client already has and how much debt service obligations exist today for the client and so on, on the basis of multiple factors. So how likely is the client to default for over the tenor of the facility arrangement that we have with them. The other is in case the client defaults, right? So how are we able to or how much are we able to recover from, so suppose we've had an exposure of $100 million, right, for a particular client. Now depending on the collateral arrangement and the conditions we've had in the agreement initially, right? So that will help us determine how much we can really recover in the likely or rather unlikely case that the client goes to a default and has to liquidate all of his holdings, right? So so these two things allow us to then determine the pricing for any of the credit facilities that are extended to them, and it also determines the risk-weighted assets which the bank has on the balance sheet, right? And correspondingly, you have capital requirements for Basel requirements for banks, on the basis of the risk-weighted assets they hold. So all of this ties in together. I think the second part about this question, which is about um, some certifications for credit risk, right? So I believe financial risk management (FRM) is one great course for risk management in particular. If someone wants to, really pursue this field, although it's a bit too specialized, so it's more about you know risk management. You can have various forms of risks, right? Like liquidity, credit risk, market risk, operational risks, etc., facing any financial institution. So that is one. If someone has zeroed in that they want to pursue a career in risk management, and I think the CFA course also provides you insights into risk management, but it's more like one out of the 10 modules you have across the CFA curriculum. But other than that, I think there must be several great courses available online, right? Like you have these. I don't know how many people are using those sites today, but we were really active at our time in those. So edX, Coursera, and similar sites are there, and great universities around the world offer courses on those. So yeah, I think those can help in building early foundations.
Yeah, Parnika, you've raised your hand. You want to say something? You can on your mic.
Yeah, so I have a question for Harshit that what exactly interests you about credit risk, and did you have to ever face a situation where you had to, measure the pros and cons while taking a decision?
Sure, sure. So I think from a credit risk standpoint, what's most interesting is the different kinds of clients you deal with, right, on a day-to-day basis. So because every case is different, so this is something which never gets repetitive, right? Because um, there are so many factors influencing any deal which has to be done by the bank. So it's always something which allows you to learn, and it's a steep learning curve, and it's always something which requires you to be spontaneous because there are certain time frames attached with the financing requirements. So I think this is something that it's always very exciting and challenging to say, and you always have something to learn from for uh, every deal that you close. Um, the other thing is about the pros and cons. So I think yes. There are so in a banking environment you'll have several teams, right? And it can sometimes feel very I wouldn't say bureaucratic, but the process requires it to be so long that it's from one team to another, things get passed on. And sometimes there are so especially as a credit risk officer, you have to manage the relationships with your clients, as well as you have to manage the risks associated with extending any lending facilities to them, right? So maintaining that sort of a balance while not taking on too much of risk for the bank, while also being available for your clients and for their financing needs is, I think, um, walking the tightrope, if I may say. And but this is also which makes this whole thing worthwhile, right? So as I said, yeah, the challenging aspect. Thanks for that.
Right. Looks like we've got two questions for Pavan. The first question is, how hard was switching fields and industries after gaining professional degrees in a different field altogether? And the next question is, how should I start learning ML and DL for quant? I've had doubts on what depth of maths we need to go through for learning ML just for quant.
Yeah, I guess in terms of switching the fields, I don't think it was really challenging. It's, I mean, ultimately, what you need to consider, I guess, is how much overlap do you have with what your prior experience. is, right? So in my case, I had pretty good like quantitative background in terms of mathematical modeling. It was just applied to different industries, right? And then I tried to leverage the same to like the finance industry. So that's what I kind of mentioned in my statement of purpose in, like, in my applications as well. And like, seemed pretty good. And like, I got admitted to the university. So like, I don't think it's really exceptionally challenging. um, I mean, you just need to kind of show a logical step forward in the career direction that you want to go, right? Like, um, what I felt was like having a master's degree helps me to kind of you know kind of go back to becoming like a fresher. And like, because I did not have any background in the finance industry, so I felt there could be challenges in terms of getting a job because I have prior experience but not in the particular field. So I thought doing a master's will kind of help me become in a sense fresher. And the university will also help in, like, getting the job and things like that, so which it did. So I guess, like, if you feel like there's not much overlap in the uh, field that you are in currently versus what you want to pursue, like, let's say in my case, like, complete separate different industry, and like now you want to go into finance, then like doing a master's in that field kind of helps. And if you have like, like some kind of mathematical experience, and like you kind of join as an analyst role, entry level role, that is one way to get into that field, although you might not necessarily have a degree in finance. So like, look out for job descriptions which align with what your experience looks like. It could be like, you have there's like a coding job in a finance institution, for example, if you have computer science background, right? Then like, you get into the industry for that particular role of coding, but like, you gain the domain experience as you kind of grow in your career. So either you pursue the path of doing a master's where you learn things and then get into the industry, or you could like, you could join the industry for a particular role which kind of aligns with your past experience, and then develop domain knowledge. So either ways are fine. I mean, I think I've seen both happen. It's just like, sometimes matter of timing, right? If you're early on in your career, and you might not necessarily want to pursue masters, but instead gain some experience in the domain itself. Like, I just try to get a foot in the door kind of a thing, right? Just get into the industry, like, like CFA, FRM, that Harshit mentioned. Those are very good ways to kind of get into the field by kind of having learning the concepts through these certifications and things like that. So, I mean, overall, I don't think it's too challenging, especially for BitSense. We always see that, like, they keep switching the fields, and like, I don't think like most BitSense kind of stick to like the field that they studied. Like, they kind of diversify and like always try to pursue multidisciplinary fields. And this is no different. Like, it's I think now more recently, like, you guys are having these minors, right? Like, you have minors in finance and things like that you can do. Those definitely really help in terms of like, aligning yourself with the field. So if you are able to do that, but I don't think it's like completely necessary to do that. But yeah, I mean, kind of align yourself as much as you can for your target role, basically. Like, that's what I would say. Um, now the next, in terms of next question, how should I start learning machine learning, deep learning for quant? I had doubts on what depth of maths we need to go through. Yeah. So basically, within the field, like, you can get into various different roles. And like, you could become like a quant analyst, or you can do a quantitative researcher role. You could be like a computational finance guy, or you could be more focused on, like, finance side of things. So there are different angles to like, these like quant based roles. um, So if like I think like the machine learning deep learning is more helpful if you are in a quant researcher type of role where you are, for example, you're doing some kind of trading strategy and building like trading strategy for like predicting stocks, and you're trying to build like these complex machine learning deep learning models. Then like these kind of models really help sometimes, like in credit risk modeling, where like you're trying to model like credit losses, and you're doing loan level analysis, like much more when you have tons of data. Even then sometimes complex machine learning models are also deployed. And to the depth of maths that you need, I would say just really ace your maths courses, right? Maths 1, maths 2, maths 3, linear algebra, all these things really help. um, the new type of, I guess, courses like machine learning deep learning, regression analysis, decision trees, like XGBoost analysis, all these techniques, like you need to be good, you have a good grasp of these things so that you can apply these in your career. So like how to develop is like there are like infinite resources, I guess, on online. Just pick one. Like you don't necessarily have to like learn everything online, but let's say like pick some set of courses. Let's say for example Coursera, you do all the machine learning deep learning courses that are popular. Like that's what's really basic things are expected. Like you will not be expected to like build like end-to-end machine learning pipelines day one, right? So they basically try to expect you to understand like the behind the scenes, how like a regression model works, how a like what is the dependent variable in a model, what is the independent variable, what is the logical relationship between them, like are you thinking about the conceptual design, like whether they make sense, like those kind of things you need to really understand. And so yeah, basically make sure like you're developing those skills, and like just apply for the companies, and I'm sure all of you will do very well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pavan. The next question is for Nitin, sorry. Ritin. What is the key difference between front office and middle office in investment banking? Also, what was the reason you wanted to pursue the front office role? The type of work can we expect as a fresher?
Sure. So I think what I was referring to was that in any bank there are certain teams who have certain revenue targets and revenue responsibilities, and that is the meaning of front office role. So effectively, whether it is investment banking or it is, let's say, being on the trading side, so that is front office when there are P&L targets and P&L responsibilities on teams, right? So that's I wanted to be a part of that team, and that's what I was referring to. Now, the the point around what was
Ritin,
the
sorry, I
question
think
for
we
you,
couldn't
sir.
hear you over
Now,
there.
look, I think the way the role evolved is, to give you an example, like in my team, when I'm a part of the debt financing team within the investment bank. This, sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah,
Ritin, your
it's
voice
lost
kind of
for like a
cracked.
couple
Am
sentences.
I audible? Sorry,
Yeah,
is
you're
it
audible
okay
now.
now? Sorry, I think some issue with mine. So I was saying, I'll just repeat myself. I was saying that front office roles. What I was referring to was are refers to the teams who have P&L and revenue responsibilities of bringing in the revenue for the bank, right? So, for example, whether that's on the investment banking side, whether that's on the corporate banking side or the sales and trading side. So that's I just had aspiration of being a part of that team, those type of teams rather. Now, to the other part of the question on what roles freshers expect, etc. I think the way to think about it is that, look, when you join as a fresher, let's say, take an example of our team. I mean, when we are doing debt financing within IB, it's not that the fresher itself would have some revenue targets, from day one, or it's not that the fresher would be expected to go and source clients. There is obviously a certain amount of work which is, let's say, the analysis of the transaction, the making the pitches, sort of doing more of the desk work, which is financial modeling, making the investment thesis and the memos when we are sort of putting in our own balance sheet, or making client material such as, let's say, working on an investor presentation for a transaction. So there's always that work, and then there is work where you have to go and try and source more transactions, meet with clients. So I think when you just start off, the split will be totally skewed towards the analysis, the work on the desk, etc. And you will have a little bit of the client side, and that slowly keeps increasing as you move ahead in your career. Now I think the key point from a fresher point of view is always, I would talk of looking at it from a long term perspective. So when you're looking at a role, let's say if you do decide and you want to get into finance, always try and understand where your growth potential is in the next few years, rather than comparing salaries or looking at things in a point in time. So for example, you may have certain roles which potentially can get an upside, can get stagnated on those roles from a career progression, vis-a-vis certain roles which today are looking, let's say, not as attractive from a salary perspective, but you do have great potential on that. So for example, let's say uh, a smaller Indian private bank, I'm not even talking about the larger one, but small Indian private bank may be giving you a less salary than, let's say, a Bank of America captive center, where you're supporting a team in US. I'm not saying that the BAML role is bad, but I'm saying you need to decide what you want to do, and not think if salaries 3x in the other role versus 1x. In let's say a much smaller Indian shop, you need to also figure out that what is giving you exposure from a longer term, what you want to do. So I think that's what I would say as freshers. There are certain there are certain roles which will come to you from campus, which is very important to understand.
Ritin, I think we can't hear you again.
I think speak to alumni, speak to people inside to get into the details of what exactly the role entails, how you can progress. And second, I think a lot of the aspects, I mean, folks have covered in this call, there are enough resources, things like CFA are relevant whether you're MBA or not. Sorry, I think I had some issue with my line. Um, some issue with my line. Is it fine now? I'm not sure what just happened.
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah, one thing I'll agree with Ritin is that in the early phase of your
Can you
career,
guys hear me now?
uh,
So I don't know why you guys lost me, but I think the point I was trying to make was,
yeah, go ahead, Ritin. Yeah, I think we lost Ritin again. I'm just like
sorry.
mentioning
So
that
no, sorry,
I
sorry,
agree
Pavan,
with
go ahead. I think
Ritin.
there's some
Basically, like
lag in
don't
my
kind of
line. Apologies.
yeah.
I think there's some
So
issue.
don't try to kind of look at compensation and things like that early on in the career, but try to kind of gain skills which will be very helpful for your target career roles, right? So do not restrict yourself to just compensation, and you might be in a big institution where you are kind of in an isolated role compared to a smaller institution where you are having a breadth of experience, getting involved in multiple different roles, so that will help you also, one thing, to gain experience, and also to kind of try different flavors of the domain, to kind of help you decide which way you would like to pursue further in your career. So yeah, basically, concurring with Ritin there, and back to you, Ritin.
Right. It looks like Ritin's having some issues. In the meantime, it looks like we've got another question for Harshit. The question is, can you guide us on some of the good certifications? Also, would be great if you could let us know when is the good time to start with CFA preparation. How are you able to manage it along with the job, considering that preparation involves a lot of time?
Yeah. So about the certifications, like these two are the prominent ones, like we talked about the CFA and FRM. But other than that, wide variety of courses and learning resources would be available um, over the net, and these prominent MOOC sites, right? Massive open online courses, so which can give you insights into not just credit risk, but broader, like risk management or finance as a whole. Now, coming to CFA preparation, so one becomes eligible in the last year of the undergrad itself, right? So people can appear in the level one in the last year of their engineering itself. But for my case, I was more focused on doing an MBA first because I wanted to reduce the number of things, right, which I was focusing on at a time. So my first goal was to do an MBA and completely focus on that. And after the placements happened, and after this, I had started working at JP Morgan. This was something which was really interesting to me, and I just started with the preparations for CFA, and I believe it wasn't that challenging because I had time during that phase, right? It's we are 2020 that we are talking about, so 2020 onward, and 21, 22 during that phase. So like weekends and after and before office hours is something I used to manage the preparations. So yes, a bit challenging at times, but ultimately I think it was something I was enjoying doing it. It wasn't with a particular purpose, but CFA program sounded like a really good opportunity because of the depth that they go into in their curriculum, right? Because MBA in finance is something which is more broad rather than deep, is how I felt it to be in terms of the various courses that are taught there. But CFA really goes into the depth of each of the areas in finance. So that's why I pursued it. And yeah, I can vouch for the fact that it's helping me today in my job profile as well. So it's something that can be considered not a necessity, I would say, but something like a good to have in one's profile. Yeah, if one is aiming for a career here.
Right.
Yes, apologies,
Thank you
guys.
for that.
I kind of
So
dropped
we've
off
got,
earlier.
yeah, no issues.
Right.
Looks like we've got two more questions for Pavan. The first being, what is the difference between financial engineering and quantitative finance? And the second question is, what courses should we focus on in order to get more opportunities and growth as a quant analyst? This person wants to know, they want any advice as they're interning in quant for their PS2 next month.
Yeah. So regarding the first question, right? So basically, around after like this financial crisis in 2008, around that time, all this new age kind of courses started to come up. Like so financial engineering, masters in quantitative finance, mathematical finance, computational finance. There are different, slightly variations of the same thing overall. Like basically, like they have very good overlap, so they are not necessarily very separate. So for for this particular audience, let's say they are fairly similar, right? So they're almost the same, right? So uh, most graduates of all of these courses tend to kind of target similar jobs anyways, right? So not much difference, honestly. um, I guess in the next question is what courses we should focus on. Uh, I would say if like I guess most of you might have already uh, covered first year by now, but I think like the probability stats course is one of the most important courses you can do. Like if you're looking for quant analyst role, and then make sure you are doing some level of coding. You don't have to do it to the level of software engineer type of level where like you are like writing code all day, but you should be able to write decent level of code. The focus will be on like trying to understand what the code does. You can leverage various libraries like when you're using R, Python, MATLAB, SAS, all this software which we typically use in our work. So it's not about writing the most efficient code which you probably want to do if you're like pursuing more a CS kind of background, but uh, trying to make sure whatever the code that you write is like pretty clean and understandable for the audience who is going to review it. And try the basic is to kind of understand the outputs from the code, like the models that you use. They should make sense, like the model design and things like that. So as you pursue your courses, like at least get a good level of coding experience. Get a strong hold of math courses, all the mathematical, like linear algebra, matrices and things like that. Get a very good hold of like the math courses as well as statistical courses. So those things will really help you set up, be ready for like when you get into finance. Like these will like be your backbone and help you move forward. Clearly you have all these electives at bits as well, like finance related electives. Do those things as much as you can, so it will really very easily set you up for like career in finance. So that's about the courses that you could do, uh, particularly at bits, like offline other than bits, like beyond bits, like there are several online courses that you can do. There are several like intro to finance type courses, financial derivatives courses online. Just pick one set of source, right? Like let's say you pick Coursera or edX, or you don't have to do all like everything that's available online. Just like pick Coursera, and then you'll have tons of resources within Coursera. So within that you pick like some kind of specialization, like they within that they will have a ton of courses, right? So do like intro to finance courses, financial derivatives, machine learning, deep learning, all these various courses. As you keep on doing them, you will gain some context, gain some experience. In like they will have some kind of projects that you can do, and you'll gain project experience as well as you keep doing them. There are various coding courses on data camp that you can do, like if you want to bring your coding skills up, like on data cam, R, Python, you can improve your skills there. Hacker rank, try to do several hacker rank coding challenges and things like that. So these all this will set you up for all these interviews that you will go for. um, in terms of career paths, I think that's what was asked, I guess, right? Yeah, different opportunities and different areas. So mainly like what people consider is like one is buy side and sell side. Like you know sell side is something uh, where like for example Barclays, like JP Morgan, all these big companies, like they play in this domain. Buy side is where more like, for example, trading companies like Tower Research, Alpha Graph, like these companies, they play in that domain. In this context, you have consulting companies like Crow, Big Four, who offer services to clients, like including financial institutions like banks and credit unions. And there is also new age institutions like fintech companies, which are like leveraging good deal of technology and combining with finance domain to deliver interesting new products to our clients, right? So there are different ways you could like there are different like fields within finance domain where you could get your career progress, like in terms of quant analyst, quant researcher type roles. just search LinkedIn, right? Like, if you search quant on LinkedIn, you'll get tons of job descriptions, and like research those and understand like what kind of role appeals to you, and then kind of understand what it entails in terms of skill sets, and then kind of build on those skills. Basically, like, that's what I would do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pavan. Ritin, your network issues are solved, so you could like continue with your answer.
So I'll keep it quick. Apologies for the for the poor network. I hope it's clear now. I think the point I was making earlier, and I'll just keep it brief. I know we're over time already, and I think Pawan also, I heard him speaking a bit about that. Is that the I think the general advice from me is in the early part of your career, opportunities are available. There are plenty opportunities in India today. It's about A, being proactive, reaching out to people. Unfortunately, I feel one drawback of the Indian education system for us is that, there's a lot of focus on, okay, so XYZ companies are coming to my college for placement, so my options limited to XYZ. Unfortunately, that type of attitude is there in MBA colleges also. I think that's something where a, early part of your career, feel free to scope out opportunities, reach out to as many people as you want, try and understand what you want to do, and B, don't solve for short term. Having, let's say, role A paying a bit more than role B, the delta not being meaningful in the long term, you end up doing role A, even if role B, may be better potentially for you. I think those type of things you should not get stuck into I would say into a short-term mentality. I think that's the kind of points I was making earlier. And to the other question which was there on having sort of client-facing roles in pre-MBA, they are there. I mean, you know, there are large number of Indian houses, MNC roles may be limited, frankly, to be very honest. Become a supply-demand issue. They go to MBA colleges, more MBA colleges than sort of grad. But there are enough and more domestic houses who are doing great work, and where you can uh, get into even sort of straight out of undergrad, and it's just a matter of sort of reaching out to people and upskilling yourself. I think we've anyway folks have spoken a lot about that, so I won't further talk of the upskilling aspect, but I think that's the key point which people should focus on. But Tushar, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you to all our esteemed alumni who joined us today for this insightful discussion on finance. Your expertise and experiences have truly enriched us in like understanding this complex field. So, on behalf of SARC, I extend our heartful gratitude to each one of you for your time and contributions. Wishing you continued success in your endeavors. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for having us. Take care.